Okay, for this fly, we're going to tie a Hares Ear Nymph, and this is a relatively easy tie. Doesn't require a lot of materials, and a very effective fly. So here we go, a Hares Ear Nymph. I'm using a size 10 2x long hook here, and it's actually a dry fly hook. I prefer to tie with dry fly hooks. I think I like the lighter wire. So that's what we're going to tie with, is a size 10 2x long dry fly hook. Here we go. Got my thread. I'm going to use black thread. Doesn't really matter what thread color you use here, because all of your materials will cover up most of your thread up until you get to the head end of the fly. So get the thread to the back, snip it off. First thing I'm going to do is tie in some elk hair. Just going to get a little bit of a pinch, and not a lot. It's not like I'm using it for the wings. It's just going to be the tail of this fly. So I got about that much, and on the back end I've got this fluffy material. We're going to pull that out so I don't deal with that stuff. We just have the nice elk hair fibers. I'm going to take those, put those in the hair stacker, and a couple of taps there. Looks like it's pretty well stacked. And I'm going to place that right on the back of the hook. The length of the tail is, I generally try to make about maybe a little less than 1/4 of an inch. First wrap is relatively loose till I get all the way around, then I pull tight. You can see it flare, and I like to wrap back. Try to get that fastened down nice and tight. There we go. Alright, this part of the elk hair I don't want. Catch that other hair there. And so we're going to gather all of that and snip it right down at the base. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to tie in some copper wire here. So I'm going to snip just a little bit of copper wire and tie that in right at the back end of the fly, right in the same spot that I tied that elk hair. And right for now I'm just going to put that copper wire in my keeper so that it's out of the way. Okay, the next thing, the reason this is called the Hares Ear Nymph is because we're going to use basically the mask or the hair off of a rabbit. So this is a rabbit, this is a hare's mask, and I'm going to cut some of the fur and use that for dubbing. And there's different parts of the mask you can use for different color. This one's going to be have a little bit more of a lighter color. I cut it off of the area that was a little bit whiter. And so first thing I'm going to do is get a little pinch of that. I'm going to twist it onto my thread here. And one of the things that I like to do to try to get that dubbing to stick to the thread a little bit is I just lick my fingers a little bit just to help twist that stuff on there. I think it gives it a little tighter fasten to the thread. Okay, got that. Now we're going to wrap our thread with the hare's ear dubbing on it. Oh, that part wanted to flare up a little more than I want it to, so I'm going to unwrap. And just work my way forward. Going to try to get to about the 2/3 mark of the hook, right about there, and we'll hang up right there. Now I'm going to take my copper wire and I'm going to wrap it, but I like to wrap it in the opposite direction that I wrapped my dubbing. I think it helps hold it better. So I'm wrapping this direction up to where I just finished wrapping my dubbing. And then I'm going to tie that off. Okay. Alright, so we've got the beginning of the fly. And now the next step is, this is something that you can choose to do or not. I like to have a little bit of weight on my fly, so I'm going to put in just a little bit of lead wire, and not much, just a touch, just enough to help that fly get down when it's time to fish with it. So just going to tie in just a couple of wraps of lead wire here. There we go. Okay, and then the next step is, I'm going to push that lead wire back just a little bit. There we go. Next step is I'm going to take a turkey feather here, and we're going to snip just a little bit from the turkey wing feather here. And I'm going to tie that in right on the top of the fly, right at the back end, right behind the lead, just like that. There we go. All right. And now, notice earlier when I cut my hare's ear dubbing, there was a lot more left over. Now I'm going to use quite a bit of that, and we're going to dub over the top of that lead. Now before I did that, you can tell that I wrapped back and forth on this lead. What that helps do is helps us so the dubbing doesn't work its way in between the lead ribs there and just become a little more unaffected. Then you just end up having to put more dubbing on your fly because it gets hidden. So if you don't do that, it's not a deal breaker on the fly, of course, but this just helps make you be able to use the dubbing that you have, go a little bit further. So, okay, again, I'm just going to lick my fingers a couple of times, get that dubbing onto that thread. Nice. Once I've got it where I feel like I've got a good dubbing wrap here, then we'll wrap that dubbing up here on the head end, and you'll notice it should look quite a bit bigger. It's going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier than the previous wraps back here. That's what we want. Once I get everything wrapped, dubbed all the way up to the front, then I'm going to grab this turkey feather. I'm going to pull it right over the top, just like this, and tie it off on the front. Okay. Alright, and now that I've got that tied off on the front, I am going to whip finish this fly. Now, sometimes people look at a hare's ear and they think, it's awfully bushy. It doesn't seem like it's a very clean fly, like it's not very finished. However, that is the intent of this fly, because a lot of this hare's ear dubbing right here will flow nicely in the current, and it gives that hook just that lifelike appearance that you want in the water. So it's actually what you're going for. Of course, if you don't want it to be too bushy, you can always just come in with your scissors and do a little trimming, and that'll help. But that is Hares Ear Nymph right there.